All right, guys. We're at the final in the last 3 minutes of the game. You can see where it's headed. This is insane. So, where do I even start with this? Like, I don't have notes. I don't have anything. uh, let me just start off. Uh, just with the lineup, the setup from the beginning. So it doesn't make sense to me why Real Madrid didn't have any offensive output on the right hand side. Getafe at home has historically been a very challenging side for Real Madrid. We've always struggled against Getafe. Throughout the years, it's always been a challenging side for Real Madrid to face. They're a local team in Madrid. They defend deep against Real Madrid. They've always historically been a challenging side. But today, the setup we played is the kind of setup you would play against teams where you are away from home, you're playing in transition, you're facing teams that are looking to attack you. It made no sense to me why you did not play in a more traditional 4-4-3. But honestly, we are now at a point where over the last 18 months, I have become so used to this. This has become the norm. Real Madrid taking L's, losing at home. None of this is surprising to me. Right now, somebody's getting a red card. I don't know who's getting the red card. Mastantuono got the red card. Okay. So we got a red card. Um, it, to the person to blame out of all of this from the beginning to me is Florentino Perez, the board. Their lack of willingness to make those signings in the winter transfer window, and this makes no sense to me. If you put me in charge of a Fortune 500 company, make me the CEO, and then that company starts to plummet, you can't be shocked. I have no business running a Fortune 500 company. Why would you do that? And likewise, why are you putting Arbeloa in charge of Real Madrid? This is the biggest football club in the world. We have structural problems. We have all of these issues. If you're going to fire Xabi Alonso, which again, the fan base did not agree with the firing of Xabi Alonso, you could not fire Xabi Alonso unless you had somebody to go into that role that you can trust and who could be the manager for Real Madrid. And we're at a point now where, yeah, people are going to say mathematically Real Madrid could still come back. Real Madrid can still win the new camp, and Real Madrid could do this and that. That's ridiculous. That's not happening. Even if we win in the new camp, I don't think that's enough. There are so many problems in this Real Madrid side that had we not lost today, we would have lost in another game. It's throughout the entire season, you can see the writing was on the wall. You don't just all of a sudden start to play good football in March when you've been garbage the whole season. In the past, we've seen Real Madrid take it up a notch around February, in late January, where we start to click and we started to get into the knockout stages of the Champions League. But if you told me this season was going to be record breaking, I wouldn't have assumed this is what you meant by record breaking, by having teams win at the Bernabéu that haven't won here historically in decades and years. I'll have to look back. When is the last time Getafe won at Real Madrid? Won in Madrid. But the board has to take accountability for this. I'm sorry, Florentino Perez, you stuck with your guns. You made the bold decision of putting Arbeloa in charge. You got a lot of the things that you wanted. Now the Vinny contract renewal is back on track. Looks like we're going to renew Vinny. And a lot of the relationships within the locker room with the players are less fractured. But Real Madrid losing to Getafe at home when you're chasing the league, that is huge. That is huge. And I'm sorry. You cannot go 2 seasons in a row at Real Madrid not winning major trophies. That simply cannot happen. You can't go 2 seasons in a row because let's keep it real. This team is not good enough to beat Manchester City in the Champions League. No Kylian Mbappe, who by the way went to France. I'm sure all of you saw the reports about Kylian Mbappe going to France because he has no trust in the medical teams in Madrid because of his knee injury. We played him in so many of those games. He looked a shell of himself. Kylian Mbappe did not look like the kind of player that we saw earlier in the season. He clearly was struggling with knee pains. And that's why we had no box presence. He wasn't pressuring the ball the way we've been accustomed to seeing him do it. So you played an injured Kylian Mbappe, and then you exacerbated his injury, and now he's out, and it looks like he's going to be gone for a few weeks. So, but to me, like I said, all of this, I'm used to it at this point. Over the last 18 months, being a Real Madrid fan, we've witnessed this team take loss after loss, and none of this is truly surprising to us who have been watching this team. Um, First of all, Thiago Pitar starting today was a bold decision by Arbeloa, and it's a decision that unfortunately did not pan out. This is why we see experienced managers traditionally when you want to give an opportunity to a younger player. First and foremost, Getafe, like I said, is a side that Real Madrid historically has struggled with. This is a side that has given us a lot of problems in the past. If you're going to play Thiago Pitar, then it needs to be against a side where, yes, you're at home, but it's not against a Getafe side that's a Madrid local team. And you phase him into playing more and more minutes, build up his confidence the last 15, 20 minutes of the match. But are you going to start him in a game like this from the onset? Is that the right decision? In my opinion, I don't think that's the right decision. And today, although he worked tremendously off the ball, Thiago Pitar, he worked very hard, and I have to commend the effort that he made. But it's a huge jump going from being a Castilla player, having your very first debut for the team in the Champions League, to now starting in a game like this in La Liga from the beginning. Um, so that decision to me made no sense. The fact that we had no attacking threat on the right hand side also made no sense. The Alexander Arnold substitution when you're chasing the game, taking him off when you needed a goal also did not make sense to me. Although Danny Carvajal had a pretty decent performance, the David Alaba substitution, David Alaba at least was progressing the ball better than Dean Howson, which by the way, that was the one thing that why we signed Dean Howson was because of his ball progression in the summer. We spent a lot of money bringing him on from Bournemouth, but he misses a clear and obvious chance in front of goal with that header as well, which made no sense to me whatsoever. But there was no pressing. Getafe had a plan, and the thing is, the reason I think Real Madrid struggles so often on a regular basis, week in and week out, is because the game plan, the blueprint on how to beat this Real Madrid side is right there for every football manager to see. Don't sit too deep. Sit with a mid block, pressure the ball high, and you're gonna and focus on being good in transition. And that's what teams are doing, and teams are having a lot of success against Real Madrid playing that way. And over the winter transfer, when you had over the winter window when it was open, when you had opportunities to bring on players to solidify this team, the board chose to stick with the players that they have available. Now, according to different reports, Jude Bellingham will be back in April. Not having Jude Bellingham against the game against Manchester City, because now you want to go as far in the Champions League as possible at this point because the league is dead. I'm sorry. Anybody who thinks the league is something that Real Madrid could win at this point, you're just being delusional. We're not going to win the league at this point. It's over. Barcelona has a 4-point league lead at the top of the table. And by the way, the irony is this is such a bad Barcelona side as well. You're losing to such a trash Barcelona side. When you look at both teams, yes, we're bad. We are awful this season. We don't deserve to win the league. But when you look at the fact that Barca is also atrocious, they can't defend. I guarantee you Barca is not going to go far in the Champions League because they don't have the quality, they don't have the players, and they're exposed every single time. They're like a boxer who leaves his chin in the air that throws a lot of punches, but they're open for a counter punch every single time. So the fact that you're giving them 2 league titles in a row is it's laughable. But it's clear that there needs to be some pretty significant changes done this summer. The Real Madrid needs to make some big changes, get rid of some big stars. A lot of players who have been coasting at Real Madrid need to go this summer. And the club also needs to evaluate some of the decisions they made with some of the players, whether they want to continue with some of the big name stars. There's a lack of creativity against these sides that sit deeper against Real Madrid in the league. You lack creativity. You don't have that in the midfield. You don't have those uh, those personnel in the team. So I don't know who's available and what the right answers are. But first and foremost, you need to identify a manager and you need to empower that manager to have all the resources and tools that they want. And then from there, once you've identified that person, whomever they may be, they need to be empowered to run the team the way they see fit. If players start complaining about the fact that they have to run more and they're watching uh, footage of tactical breakdowns that they're not satisfied with, then the decision needs to fall with the manager, not with the players. A lot of these players have gotten complacent, winning 2 Champions Leagues in many cases in a row. And so for many of them, they've grown to be too comfortable with being Real Madrid players. There are so many players out there who would love to put on the jersey for Real Madrid, and yet they are not being given that opportunity. Many of you, I'm sure, I've seen Fabrizio Romano talk about the fact that on a regular basis, there are players, agents reaching out to Real Madrid, offering their players to Real Madrid, and there's a decline on the other side of the phone. We're talking about top tier players. When you consider the fact that Real Madrid oftentimes has the ball on the left hand side, and they keep passing towards the end of the game. It was Fede to Vinicius, Vinicius to Carreras, Fede to Vinicius. They just kept on passing the ball in that little triangle in the left hand side, doing absolutely nothing. And when I look at that, I just ask myself, what is happening in training? What is actually happening in training? Are these guys working on something on the training pitch? Because why can they not find solutions? Why are they not able to break down teams that sit in this in deep blocks like this? Gonzalo Garcia hardly touched the ball in this game. Hardly touched the ball. And not only did he hardly touch the ball, he hardly saw the ball in the box. So you're not able to effectively get the ball to your attackers. And then when you do have the ball out in the wide space, you have players combining for short passes, but there's absolutely no way that this team has any sort of thought process around what players should be doing. A lot of it is on the whim. Now, when you look at the more elite sides in Europe, that of course the Manchester Cities, the PSGs, the Arsenals, the Bayern Munichs, look at the off-ball movement. Look at the structure that is in place. We have no structure. We tried to institute some structure with Xabi Alonso, with his counter pressing, and very quickly we found out that that was not welcome. And Xabi Alonso was then sacked because he was too detail oriented and he asked and he demanded too much of his players. And then the divas demanded that they had the president give them whatever they wanted. Ultimately, Real Madrid has been able to get by having the best football players in the world and allowing those best football players in the world to dictate what happens behind the scenes with the player managers. But Real Madrid does not have that anymore. We don't have the best players in the world for them to make those decisions and dictate what happens. So at, half of 90% of the players that play at Real Madrid, you can upgrade. 90% of the players, you can upgrade them. So I don't understand where these egos come from. And let's not forget, we've had managers in the past, like we had it under Fabio Capello, Jose Mourinho, guys who won the Liga at Real Madrid. Those managers were also very demanding of the players, but there's a new culture and attitude where players no longer feel like they need to listen to their superiors, and the managers has have to bend to them, if you see all of Arbeloa's comments in the press, it's all praising Vinicius, how great he is, and how he's an amazing player, and we just need to get him the. They just need to they need to say these kinds of things in the press to appease the players. I don't understand what's with the egos. When did it become like this? When did it become? When did they become such sensitive? I can't curse because I'm fasting, but to me, this is absurd. And to me personally, there needs to be a wholesale changes this summer. Real Madrid needs to bring in a lot of new players, new faces in this team. How does Real Madrid lose against Haram Ball? I'm not surprised by Real Madrid losing today whatsoever. My prediction was it was going to be a tight game, but I thought we would win 1-0. Getafe, like I said, is always traditionally a challenging side for Real Madrid to face. We've struggled against Getafe throughout the years because, again, like I said, they're aside from Madrid, they have a lot of history playing us, and it's always a tight match when we face Getafe. It's usually um, a very close scoreline. But what we saw today from Real Madrid, it looked very similar to the Benfica game. Like I said, a lot of the sides that are having success against this Real Madrid side, it's very obvious how you want to face them. And I just feel like I repeat a lot of the things that I say around the injury of the players. Now Jude Bellingham is not going to be out. He's going to be out for the rest of March, from what I understand. Eder Militao is still out, which means both players are likely not going to be available for the clash against Manchester City. The clash against Manchester City, the second leg is at the Etihad, which means we need to somehow get a result at home at the Bernabéu against them. That's going to be extremely challenging, considering the fact that Real Madrid struggles against Benfica. They struggle against Getafe. They struggled against Elche. They struggled against Osasuna. They struggle against you name it. You name the team in La Liga, we mid-table relegation sides in La Liga. Real Madrid was eliminated in the Copa del Rey by a side that the guys are have full-time jobs as plumbers. They work at restaurants, and then they go put on jerseys, play part-time, and those guys eliminated Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey. So that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a Real Madrid side that's lacking character, lacks belief. You're dealing with a lot of players who simply are not good enough. A lot of these players you need to change and upgrade. I, and just looking at the comment around Thiago Pitar, yes, like I said, he showed a lot of personality. I saw him fighting today. He made a tremendous effort, but again, my only point of contention is starting him in a game like this where you know it's going to be a hard fought game against Getafe. You needed to stretch Getafe by having a 4-3-3 formation in possession. You needed a player on the right hand side to really create more attacking threat down that side. We had an over reliance on the left hand side with Vinicius, and every time I saw Vinny on the ball, there was 2-3 players on him. Real Madrid had no answers for that. We had no outlets on the right hand side, and so a lot of the things that we've talked about in the past about Real Madrid over reliance on the left hand side. Unfortunately, today we saw it once again, and it's clear also by the substitutions that this is a step above Arbeloa's head in terms of the decisions. Just look at the fact that the game against Osasuna, he takes off Fede Valverde uh, in a moment in the game where Real Madrid was still in it, and he brings on Dani Ceballos. Dani Ceballos obviously gifts the ball to Osasuna. They go and score the winner. So that's what we're seeing right now, which is that you have a very inexperienced manager who unfortunately is taking a huge step up from the Castilla to the first team, and that is one step too far for him. He's doing the best that he can, but sometimes in life, our best is just not good enough. And if you were gonna sack Xabi Alonso, which all of us disagreed with, then you needed to bring somebody in who can, on an interim basis, at least steward this group of players in the right direction and galvanize them. The only player I see galvanized who's playing better is Vinicius. But again, Vinicius cannot make magic happen when he's outnumbered two against two, three defenders at a time. You need to have also a box presence. And today, also Real Madrid was very wasteful. Um, from the set pieces, from the corner kicks, we had multiple corner kicks. Look at I hate to bring up this example again, but look at Arsenal. The fact that when they're not playing their best football, they're scoring goals from corner kicks. I'm sorry, we need to be doing we if we can't play some good football, how about we start taking advantage of the fact that we had multiple set pieces in this game? We had multiple corner kicks and we did not do anything. Did we come close? Yes. But if you cannot defend or attack, then at least do something you're good at. Be good at one thing, for crying out loud. I'm just really curious to know what is actually happening in the training ground. But the truth of the matter is, these players, a lot of them, are not good enough for Real Madrid. It looks like we're closing in on bringing in a center back. Nico Paz will be back, obviously, and Nico Paz plays for Como as a number 10. So again, is Nico Paz really the priority in terms of the profile players that you need within this team? I don't think Nico Paz should be prioritized, but yes, there's a market opportunity, and that's how this club operates. They look at market opportunities because you bring a guy like that in, you're going to be able to sell him for a huge profit, and that's how they're looking at that signing. But if Endrick comes in next season, you have Arda Guler there, you have Mastantono, and now you're going to have Nico Paz. Who's building the squad exactly, man? Who's actually in charge? Who's actually in charge of making these decisions? I'd be curious to know if Juni Calafat, who's by the way a scout, I'd really be curious to hear from him. Because I assure you that there's probably a disconnect between the players that Juni Calafat is recommending to Real Madrid and then who they're going for, because of the fact that they're viewing these decisions as business decisions. They don't look at them as footballing decisions. A lot of these decisions are, you're looking at Galacticos 2.0, where Real Madrid is signing and bringing in players because they are market opportunities. They're excellent business opportunities, but they're not necessarily sporting opportunities. But practically the entire backline you can revamp. You need to revamp practically the entire backline. And by the way, I have to make this point before I forget. Many people and people in the fan base have been criticizing and talking poorly about Kylian Mbappe. Now, over 50% of our goals come from Kylian Mbappe. But I've seen a lot of blame being put on him over the last few games. And now we find out, obviously, that he's been dealing with this knee injury. But this is clearly has nothing to do with Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe is not to blame for the poor performances from Real Madrid. If anything, if he was there today, it's likely he would have been able to do something. But Real Madrid, again, has an over-reliance on Kylian Mbappe. And if anything, if I was him, I would be extremely frustrated finally signing for Real Madrid, only to find out that this club does not invest into potentially the best medical facilities. I already know, because I have contacts within the club regarding some of the poor diets and food and things of that nature. And then on top of that, they refuse to bring in players in certain positions when necessary, especially when you have injuries. But it's clear you need two center backs. You need central midfielders. You need to get rid of a big name this summer as well. And then you need to bring in somebody who can play as a right winger, in my opinion, like a natural right wing player who can play in that position. But the central midfielders you need to sign need to be ball playing central midfielders, not bring in midfielders who are defensive midfielders, because that's not what we need. We need ball playing players who can actually help break down teams that sit deep, who are good under pressure. Again, I've made my position clear with regards to Zubamendi. I didn't think Zubamendi was the right decision for Real Madrid, but you need somebody of that type of profile that can play as a central midfielder against teams that sit deep, who's good in tight spaces, who's good under pressure, and who's press resistant and who can progress the ball. That's what you need. That's the profile player that you need more than anything. Um, but if Real Madrid somehow, in some miraculous way, because Manchester City we've seen this season have been poor, but they're going to be very motivated, and the second leg is going to be at the Etihad to eliminate us from the Champions League. I favor Manchester City to win that tie. And quite frankly, as a content creator who's made multiple videos about Manchester City, I'm sick and tired of it. But even if we get past Manchester City, we get Bayern Munich or Arsenal next, from what I understand. And I'm sorry, I just don't see us getting past them. Do you think Real Madrid should quit the habit of not signing anyone in the winter? Yes, 100%. I think it depends on the circumstance. The circumstance dictated in this case that Real Madrid needed to bring somebody in the winter because we had a lot of injuries to key players. And quite frankly, your best defender at our Militao, your best center back, has been injured throughout the last 2-3 seasons, over and over again. So you simply can't have a situation where your best central defender is constantly injured and injured and injured. That's something Real Madrid needs to evaluate. They two world class defenders first and foremost, and to me, Carreras is an excellent left back, but again, he lacks the attacking prowess. I'm sure you guys have seen Eduardo Camavinga when he's played at left back. He's produced more attacking threat than Alvaro Carreras. So the Trent substitution I didn't agree with. Also, Trent has been poor in some of these games. Some of his passes have fell short. So, but I, I honestly don't know. There needs to be a real assessment. Do I think Bruno Fernandez uh, should Real Madrid get Bruno Fernandez? My honest opinion is no. I don't think he's good enough for Real Madrid. Bruno is actually not a bad player, but at times he gives up the ball in very bad positions. But have I seen him chip the keeper from midfield? Have I seen him create tremendous attacking opportunities for his teammates? Is he a decent player? Yes, but I still think there needs to be a different profile player who's cleaner on the ball than Bruno Fernandez. There's times where I see Bruno under pressure making very poor decisions with his ball progression. So again, yeah, Vitinha is the right answer, but will the club pay whatever money that they need to pay for his release clause? From what I understand, his release clause is about 120 million euros. That's what the sources say. I don't know if that's been corroborated by Fabrizio, but that is a no-brainer. If he's willing to come to Real Madrid, to pay that 120 million is a no-brainer. So that's all I got for this one. What am I hearing? I'd love to hear. Bruno's possibly the best player in the Premier League. I strongly disagree with that. I strongly disagree with that. Why don't we create our and find our own Vitinha? I don't know, guys. Like I said at the beginning of this, I've become so numb to these. In the beginning, I would be super frustrated. It all fell apart. We all know this when Tony Kroos left. When the moment that he decided to retire, that following season, I'll never forget it. The very first game we had was against Mallorca. And that was the very first game Kylian Mbappe played for Real Madrid in La Liga. Now, we had the Super Copa against Atalanta, and we won 2-0 in that game. And I remember that game, and we actually played pretty decently in that game. We were playing some pretty amazing transitional football. I remember seeing Vinny dropping deep to collect the ball, playing balls over the top to Kylian Mbappe. You saw Rodrigo, Kylian, Vinicius switching positions. It was looking beautiful in that first Super Cup game against Atalanta. But then the game against Mallorca took place in La Liga, and you just saw some of the most atrocious terrorism Netanyahu football you've ever seen. And I thought it was a fluke, and then we ended up playing against was it Asasuna following that game, and it was the same thing. And since then, that season, Real Madrid went on to lose in historic fashion at their own ground. Whereas the season previous, we had not lost at the Bernabéu a single game the entire season. If I'm not mistaken, we only lost one game, and it was at the Metropolitano to Atleti, and then we went on the streak where we did not lose a single match at the Bernabéu. So from where we went, from that place to where Real Madrid has been over the last 2 seasons, has been a downward spiral, just like crashing into the ground. And you're just I put on Real Madrid games now. I see them get dominated. I see teams have opportunities against them. I see Real Madrid lose to weak sides, and honestly, I'm not surprised. I'm sitting there just watching the game. I'm like, this is not the Real Madrid that I have been watching for the last. We got spoiled for over a decade with that generation, but now I just don't know how we dig ourselves out of this hole without making some pretty huge changes within this club with some of these players. And first and foremost, we have to agree that we made a lot of big mistakes with some of the signings of some of these players, and some of them are just not good enough. And you need to rebuild and get rid of. You need a huge overhaul, and start from the back, from the defenders. But yeah, that's all I got for this one. And yeah, no surprises.